guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. That's from a guy. He is 75 years old, definitely one of the oldest guys ever written into me. And he shares his story about how, between 40 to 50 years ago, about how he ended up kicking his wife to the curb because she was sleeping with the church pastor. No joke. And how you're going to see that that wasn't her first time cheating, and how back then, obviously, divorce was much more frowned upon, and people just stuck through a lot of BS for the kids and the family, and how it just didn't work out. And he finally learned his lesson, and how he said he was RP'd a long time ago before the thing became a movement, and had that terminology. And that'd be a good one to go over here, guys, to show you for multiple reasons. One, the age-old, once a cheater, always a cheater. And you're going to see this absolutely. Two, how it is far better to cut your losses when somebody's treating you off in an awful way, like cheating or affairs, all that, instead of staying with them. Because you stay with them, it's going to be a bad marriage. Kids are going to grow up in an unhappy family. It will happen again. It is far better for a guy to, even if he's living in a no-fault divorce state and he's going to get raked over the coals, it is far better for him to just cut his losses, take the hit, and move on. Because men are strong at our core, even though the movement, the bowel movement, what movement I'm talking about, is doing their can to weaken guys over the years. Men are strong at their core and can find a way to survive and start over and thrive. You can't stay in a bad situation like this, otherwise what happens, happens. And also you're going to see, once again, guys, how what I talk about, it's timeless. Men are men, women are women, human nature is human nature, whether it happened now in 2023 or 50 years ago back in 1973, it's the same thing. And of course, wherever you are in the world, human nature is human nature. Doesn't make a difference your religion, your culture, your socioeconomic background, the same damn thing. So I'm going to go through his story here. It's definitely very interesting. But before I do, real quick, I'm going to read a quick email here that I got from a female subscriber. She's a single MOM. And she's writing in thanking me for my channel, how it's helped her realize where she was being an a-hole in the past, and it's, I guess, helping her to keep herself in line. It's kind of amusing here. She says here, real quick, this will only take a minute. She says, "Good evening, SSM. I've been a listener of yours for 1.5 years, and I've watched all your videos, minus a few where the men and women were such bitch-ass whiners I couldn't finish. Your channel actually helped me realize that I was being I'll just say jerk, because she used some words I can't use here, a year and a half ago. I was a single MOM, oh the horror, I know, and when I met my now husband, I left their father 22 years ago because he was very much a alcoholic. She said we were married very young. She says also my husband calls them FUCK trophies, the kids. The second date, as he was telling me he never dated anyone with kids before, and has actually ditched women on dates after finding out that they had the FUCK trophies, kids from another marriage. He slowly realized he was telling someone who had 2 trophies, and I lost it laughing. Best thing I ever heard. That was 16 years ago. Anyway, I thought you'd find it hilarious and wanted to thank you for helping me snap back into my role with my super alpha man before I effed it all up. Thanks for being the dick you are, M." Notice she insulted me, but with a smile. In other words, I tell you guys, when the women say you're being an a-hole or a dick, you're actually doing something right. There you go. So, to the lady that wrote this, I'm glad you enjoy the videos, and I hope you use it for good, not evil, knowing these things. And treat your man with respect. But right then, there you go. She wanted her alpha. And women don't like weak-ass guys. But you better treat him right. That's all I'm going to say. And yes, a lot of women that write me, they always end it with a P.S. Thank you for being the dick you are, the a-hole you are. It is what it is. Okay, on to the main event. About the 75-year-old guy. He says, "Hi SSM. I've been enjoying your channel for over 2 years now. I would like to share my story from the perspective of someone who took the RP 30 years ago. I'm 75 years old, and I had a pretty normal family. In high school, I had a few dates, but no steady girlfriend when I was a virgin when I finished high school. A few months after high school, I was drafted into the Army for 2 years and went to Vietnam. While there, I had 2 escort encounters with some local women there. I was released from the military right before my 21st birthday and returned to my hometown. I lived with my parents and got a factory job and a new car and wanting to save some money for my own apartment. After a few months, I met my ex-wife and we started dating. She was 19 years old at the time and living with her parents. We started a steaming relationship effing daily like rabbits. Well, that's what 19 and 20-somethings do. We moved in together. We wanted to move in together, so we got our apartment, and all was well. That quickly? Well, that's what people did back then. You wouldn't believe how many people got married back then, in those days, 19, 20, 21 years old. After a year together, we got married. Smack to your younger self. I know it was the times. I know you didn't know any better, but I had to do it anyway. Everybody else is expecting me to smack you. And after 1 year, we had my daughter. We bought a small house under using my GI Bill benefits, and 2 years later, we had our son, and I got a vasectomy. Let's remember the part that he said he got a vasectomy. It's very important here. After working in the factory for 3 years, I followed a couple of friends to sell insurance for a large insurance company. I liked my job, but at first money was tight and the hours were long. By year 2, I was earning much more than I did at the factory job. Good for you. Good for you for having the balls to go and do something different, and even though it didn't pay off right away, it did in the long run. That's what I want, guys. You guys always trying to better yourselves and making something of yourself. After the second child was born, my wife stopped working to stay at home with the kids until they started school. We lived in a neighborhood with a lot of young families, and we socialized with them a lot. My work schedule was 10 hours daily, Monday through Thursday, and 4 hours on Friday, and weekends off, and that was my schedule pretty much for the next 40 years. The trouble started about 4 years. My ex-wife started to act differently, and we had a single neighbor who was about our age, who was hanging out around socializing with neighbors during cookouts and cards, etc. Started acting differently, huh? That's called a red flag. During the week, I normally didn't get home until around 8 p.m. He was a school teacher and was home a lot earlier. I noticed one day that my wife had a prescription for birth control pills. Hang on here. Why does your wife need birth control pills when you had the vasectomy? After all, she's a loyal, loving, dutiful wife, so why would she need the birth control pills? Massive red flags. And why the hell does she have it in a place where you can find it? I didn't say anything, but checked periodically to see if she was actually taking them, and she was, and I had a vasectomy. I did some detective work with some of my male friends, and they thought the teacher and my wife were dating, but I couldn't prove it. Well, I'm sure some of your friends could confront him in the dark, and I'm sure he would squeal like a pig if you wanted to go down that route. A few weeks later, my wife found out that she had an STD and blamed me. Blamed me for having an affair and giving her the STD. Oh, for God's sakes. We hadn't had SCX for over a month, and I never had SCX with anyone else. I got tested, and I was clean. Blames you. So far what we have here, guys, we got the lying, we got the cheating, we got the BS, all this stuff which this guy's describing that happened, give or take, between 45 to 50 years ago, is the shit that happens now. This is why I say this information is timeless. And you know the old women in accountability joke right here. I left and stayed with my parents and consulted with an attorney. I live in a no-fault state, and she didn't work, and we had 2 small kids, and I was going to take a huge financial hit and lose my house. We started marriage counseling and joined her parents at church, which had a program for troubled families. More like she should have been going to the marriage counseling, and she should have been going to the church meetings for troubled families because she's the one that caused the problem. Now, right here, he knows darn well, and his attorney gave him the information, no-fault divorce state, he was going to get raked over the coals, she doesn't work, she would have gotten the house, probably the custody of the kids, but you know what? I mean, I'm not a parent, and I don't know what that's like, but still, you can't have a marriage like that, and once a cheater was a cheater, and I guarantee you that shit slides is going to happen again, because she'll learn, hey, look what I did. And there were no consequences. He still stayed with me. I got it made. Courts are on my side. And it's only a matter of time before somebody's going to step out and do the same thing again. And watch what happens. Our marriage got back on track, and we were very active at our church. And she taught Sunday school, and I was on the board. My ex-wife went back to school and became a registered nurse. Oh, Lord, the stereotype, huh? Our marriage seemed okay. The XCX was a little slow, but the kids and finances were great. The days my wife worked, she worked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There were also a lot of days which we didn't see much of each other. After about 5 years at our church, our beloved pastor retired, and we hired a new pastor. This was his first church, and he had a very nice wife and son. He was a popular pastor, define popular, and well respected. And then one day, the shit really hit the fan. I received a phone call from the pastor's wife, and she suspected that her husband was cheating, and she hired a private investigator, and the pastor was sleeping with at least 3 different women in the church. And you guessed it, one was my wife. So much for leading the flock, huh? Was he giving his blessing to your wife and all the other ladies? Well, they weren't ladies. She'd been seeing him for 2 years. The next day was Sunday, and she blindsided her husband during the church service, and it was a real shit show. The pastor was fired that day. My wife was totally humiliated, along with her parents and our kids. Well, I feel bad for your kids and her parents, and you. The pastor moved in with one of the women he was dating, and his wife left town with her child. The next day, my wife moved out with a married coworker who had 3 kids. After about 6 months, he returned to his wife. They were creating a lot of turmoil at work, and they were both terminated. My ex took a traveling nurse job for several years and remarried. That marriage lasted for 8 years, and she divorced him. I decided at that point that marriage was not for me. I did not want to have any more kids, and I did not want to raise anyone else's kids either. I was in my early 40s, and I did not need anybody to support me, and I didn't want anybody to support. My kids stayed with me, and I bought my wife out of the house, and no alimony. There you go. So it was inevitable. It was only a matter of time before that was going to happen. And you bought her out. End of story. No alimony. There you go. And the kids stayed with you. The biggest surprise I had about dating was how fast I found women to date. At 75 years old, I didn't date much. I don't date much now. I have one special friend whose husband who had Alzheimer's and is in a nursing home. Keep up the good work that you do. So guys, there you go. Quick one, but that'd be a good one. I love the variety of stories I get, whether it be dudes from other countries to show you that the things I talk about happen all over the world, or guys that are much older, because I love hearing from my older audience, that have been through this shit 50 freaking years ago, the same stuff that happens right now. It doesn't change. So this is why this information is timeless. And if I'm here on YouTube, shit, in 20 years, when I'm 65 years old and I got a gray beard, and if I have any fucking hair left in my head, it'll be just relevant it'll be relevant then. Hopefully things will improve a little bit then, but I seriously doubt it. And so there you go. But again, guys, the lesson here. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Pay attention to the red flags. As hard as it is, there are times you got to cut the losses and move on. Even take a hit in the short term. It's like an investment. I'm sure a lot of guys out there that have money in investments have made at least one mistake in their life where they put money in the wrong stock in a company that you thought was going to do well, and it got hit, and there's no sign of it getting better. And eventually you realize, under your own knowledge or the advice of your accountant or your financial advisor, sell the stock, take the hit, take the tax loss, reinvest the money in something more promising, and you learn your lesson and move on. Same thing here, okay? And obviously he's been on his own for the last 30 years, and he's doing whatever he wants to do, It sounds like he dates on occasion, or he did, but that's that. But he became RP'd, if you will, I got to speak in code, well before it became a thing. So, once again, guys, a nice little lesson here. So, sir, thank you for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. And send the word to all your buddies that are in their 70s and 80s that, they're older about my channel. I definitely would love the support. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let this guy know what you think. Give him a shout out. Tell him they appreciate his service and many other things. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.